Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Joe Theodore, and it's an honor to be here with you today. I hope you are doing fantastic. And yeah, my friends, let's get right into some weekly astrology. This week, we are going to focus on strictly Mars and Leo. If you haven't watched my most recent video, the November forecast, it's kind of a forecast, really more of a conversation with you guys about the upcoming transits for the month, which are drastically different from the transits we were having in October. And as many of you know who have been following me, October was the most intense month of the entire year, in my opinion. And second to October was the solar eclipse in Aries that happened back in mid-April, which actually was the day, or the week rather, that I launched this YouTube channel. So that solar eclipse was actually a really big day for me and my astrological career, so to speak. It was really the first time I took going on YouTube or social media seriously. So as October was wrapping itself up, we had a massive full moon there. And that full moon was kind of a very, very pinnacle reactivation point for, I think, a lot of us involving that solar eclipse. So that's why in October, I was very much discussing the solar eclipse story again from April, Aries being really the only fire energy that we've had since that point in time, in my opinion, aside from Leo season, of course. And Leo season, we had Venus and Mercury fly through, right? And Mars, yes, Mars had its day in, Mars is having its day, rather, in Leo now. So that's kind of why I want to very much focus on Mars in Leo, because this is kind of the moment, the final moment Mars has before it goes retrograde and back into Cancer starting in January. But October was a heavy month, and we had a lot of fire activations again because of that full moon and its association to the solar eclipse. But other than that, October has been a bombshell for so many reasons. On the world stage, obviously, all of this astrology is super, super loud. Obviously, when it comes to the election, there is so much to say about the astrology unfolding for both candidates involved, and just honestly, the whole Pluto return story, generally speaking. But now we're entering a new phase post Mars going opposite Pluto in Capricorn, because that really was the big event leading into the month of November, which was going to immediately start with a new moon in Scorpio. So as I'm recording this right now, honestly, Mars isn't totally even out of Cancer yet. Mars will be in Cancer starting 12 midnight Monday morning, Eastern Standard Time. So this weekend, right? And I'm not sure when you're watching this. I may be releasing this either midday Sunday or later in the evening on Sunday, today, rather. So Mars is still in Cancer. Mars has not even entered Leo yet. And this ingress will be felt in a big, big way, like all Mars ingresses, okay? So we're coming out of this very intense month. We're coming out of these oppositions to Pluto, which have definitely been maybe striking a chord with our Capricorn story, our 15 years of karma that we have spent dealing with Pluto there. I feel there might have been a final crescendo, if you will, involving maybe something that you were very much dealing with throughout that entire transit. Like, I can speak for myself a little, I guess, really quickly. For me, my third house was very much activated by this past 15 years, right? And the third house is very much involved with communication, right? And for me, learning how to communicate most efficiently in my immediate surroundings and how to maybe be more impactful in the world through communication was a really big lesson for me. And now that I'm coming out of this, more mature and older, of course, learning lessons in communication, however that translates, right? Whether that's me being a speaker, whether that's communicating via arts and crafts in some way, right? That was part of my transformation. So the pinnacle of Mars going opposite Pluto kind of just taught me, I mean, honestly, like, I want to say that some things from my past came up a little bit, but really it was just more about dealing with overwhelm, I think, in regards to workflow. And my workflow very much includes communication stuff. So it's kind of like a culmination of a lot of stuff that I was really transforming, through my life in the last 15 years. Now, November begins. Mars freshly ingresses into Leo. This is where Leo will be activated by a malefic for the first time in a very long time, or at least a year and a half, right? Because the last time Mars was in Leo was the summer of 2023. So a little over a year, Mars has not seen Leo. And Mars in Leo can be a fantastic transit. The only issue with this Mars in Leo is that by November 20th, it will go opposite Pluto again in Aquarius. So we're going to be dealing with a whole new round of oppositions. And then the second thing that's a little is that by early December, which has nothing to do with November, obviously, Mars will go retrograde in Leo at 6 degrees and then start making its way back all the way through Cancer, pretty much up until where Mars was in Cancer, October 4th. Because that's where Mars will end up stationing direct in the future. It was the exact degree where Mars was October 4th. So Mars has a journey ahead of itself. Mars won't even get all the way through Leo, heading towards Virgo, honestly, until almost by the time the summer begins, right as spring is kind of like in full swing. Mars will then be exiting Leo very shortly after that. We are in early November, my friends, and Mars will be dealing with Leo energy and Cancer energy for about a half a year, which is crazy to even think about. But this is the reality that we're about to enter. We're about to enter the second energy involved in this Martian story that will take up half of a year of our lives, right? So Mars being rogue in this moment, right, in this moment in time, means that the only aspect that Mars will truly be making is to Mercury in Sagittarius that will be freshly ingressed the same time that Mars ingresses into Leo. So literally, Mercury will be ingressing, or already ingressed yesterday, Saturday, midday. But then as we move forward into this coming week, Mars being freshly ingressed will be providing the only direct aspect that truly is going to affect Mars. I hope this is making sense to you. Mercury will be at 3, 4, 5 degrees, 6 degrees as this entire week, the first week of November, unfolds. Mars will only get to about 1 degree, 2 degrees, right? Maybe 2 degrees by the end of this week. So other than that, the planet of communication, the planet of the mind, the planet of things that move information very quickly, will be trining the planet of aggression, assertiveness, action, passion, anger, rage, and depending on how that manifests for you is going to reveal itself sooner than later, my friends. Because it's interesting with transits, we don't really know how they're going to manifest unless we either have an intuition on what that energy is going to be for us, or it just comes out of nowhere and we learn, oh, right, well, Leo's in my 4th house of home. Of course, I'm going to be getting activations from Sagittarius to my Leo in the 4th house. And there's going to be something involving amplification of the way something is trying to be communicated within my home life, right? Maybe there's some more pep in one step to plan a trip, right? Sagittarius, we could talk about traveling. We could talk about moving around, exploring new things. And we could talk about the house of home, like trying to book a trip for your family, right? And really getting the passion and the action of Mars in the sign of Leo, which is all about taking leadership and having passion for something and booking that trip, right? Like that would be a great example for this transit to begin unfolding that kind of thing for someone like yourself if you have Leo in the 4th house. Now, when it comes to what it means for a planet to be rogue, that just means that more than half of the time, because again, if there's no other planets influencing it, it's left to its own devices, right? And Mars left to its own devices can be a very wild card of a situation because Mars is known for many things. And we depend in astrology on aspects so we can blend and use multiple forces to create something that could be maybe more harmonious and not so left to its own devices. I think that's like the perfect way to put it, right? And we're dealing with a malefic here. So if Mars is not being balanced out with like Jupiter or Venus or even Saturn, that can slow it down a little bit and restrict some of its maybe chaotic energy. It's left to be just the god of war that it is. It is left to be just this unpredictable, aggressive, and assertive player in our life, right? So, like I said, the only planet really influencing it is Mercury for just about a week before Mercury moves on further into Sagittarius, and Mars is just slowly going to be moving little by little until it gets to 6 degrees by early December. And Mars being left alone can be a very dangerous thing. And the last time Mars was actually left alone was right after that solar eclipse in April, because Mars wasn't in Aries at that time. Mars came into Aries after the solar eclipse. And Mars was not being aspected by anything. And I think at that point in time, we saw a lot of amplification of war in the Middle East. And there was a lot that was amplifying during that time with Israel and going into Rafah. I don't know if you guys remember that. Again, not talking politics here, but Mars in the sign of Aries is much more hawkish, involving war, conflict, rage, anger, blah, blah, blah. Mars in Leo is more inspiring, right? So, but Mars in Leo, left to its own devices, can be maybe a bit too much. It might be a little bit too flamboyant and again, just maybe too full of itself in a way. It can be too aggressive to get what somebody wants, right? If you're planning that trip, again, Leo in the 4th house, if you're planning that trip, let's say Mercury moves on, but all of a sudden, like Mars is really in the heat of the moment trying to plan this thing. But let's say things stop working out, like maybe there's some trouble and there's some things not working themselves out. Someone might get ahead of themselves and get a little too aggressive with really wanting something to work out when it really is like, maybe we weren't ready for that trip. You know, maybe we were just getting really inspired, but maybe it's not going to work out. And then something with Mars in the 4th can turn into maybe something of a conflict. Because again, Mars is very much under the domain of the C word, conflict. So we have to always be prepared for conflict with Mars. That's why it's a malefic, right? Mars is the aggressive malefic in the sky that could always cause conflict. And even when we have our intentions in the right place, if we're working really hard with Mars, if Mars isn't involved in some area of our life, or even in your birth chart, wherever Mars is, that's probably an area of your life you feel very activated, maybe where you feel you have the most energy. Maybe that's the part of your chart where you're a go-getter, or it might be like where you have a temper, right? Or where you're more prone to have conflicts with others, or even conflict within yourself, conflicting emotions, right? So we're dealing with Mars not being influenced by a lot during its time. In Leo for the first half of the month. Okay, so we have that Mercury activation for a couple of days, then it's really not being aspected by anything else, right? And yes, if we want to include aspects by zodiac signs, like for example, Scorpio squares Leo by sign. The sun will be in Scorpio until November 21st, right? 22nd. And Mars will be at 2 degrees, 1 degree, 2 degrees, 0 degrees, obviously when it ingresses into Leo. The sun technically is still influencing the entirety of Leo by sign. But in astrology, we really only consider the strength of what those planets, how they will be affecting each other if the degrees are close enough. So that's really the truth of it all. But we can always say the sun is squaring Mars still if we really want to, because the influence is still there. It's just, it's not really enough to cause maybe damage, right? Or to really trigger something that could be very loud and in our face. But the Scorpio sun energy is definitely going to be rubbing off a little bit. So that's something also to consider, of course, where these house topics, themes of life are for you. But when we talk about just being a wild card rogue planet, we're talking about, okay, well, what's Leo in your life, right? Basics. What is Leo in your life? What part of your life is that? Is it the house of home? Okay, well, if Leo is not being if Mars is not aspecting anything else transiting in the sky, if it's not totally messing up anything in your birth chart, but really what's going on in the sky is what matters most in the context of this video, then it's only going to have what your birth chart has to offer, and affecting whatever's going to happen in your life. But innately, because nothing in the sky is affecting it, we're dealing with anything is possible. Anything can be possible with the god of war, a planet of conflict, assertiveness, and all of the rest. So I'm actually really looking forward to this in my own personal life. I have a lot of planets in Leo. I'm hoping that this provides some much needed assertiveness and energy. I hope it does not bring me more anger and frustration, because I don't need any more of that. But I think Mars in Leo is so much more favorable than Mars in Aries, because Mars in Aries can definitely be more dangerous, right? So I'm thankful that we're dealing with a passionate zodiac sign where a lot can come from this that can be more inspiring and more full of, I don't want to say the word optimism because that's more Sagittarius, but again, Leos can be very inspiring. Leos want to be the best and really feel good about what they're doing, and each and every one of us has a Leo part of our life that probably wants to shine. It's ruled by the sun. So wherever Leo is in your birth chart, there's probably a part of your life there that really wants to feel warm and really wants to feel illumined and wants to have that passion for that theme of life, right? And I'm hoping Mars shows us a glimpse of what that entire transit can look like as we unfold the future, because it's going to retrograde back all winter long through Cancer. And then by the time it even gets back into Leo again, we're talking about March, April, right? So we're going to be revisiting this Leo energy once January 6th comes, because January 6th, of all days, right? Mars will go back into Cancer. And then starting in February, Mars goes direct. And then March, April, that's when Mars will get back into Leo. And then Mars, April-ish, April into May, really, is when we're going to see our more dominant Mars and Leo transit. So we're just getting a taste, guys, for 2 months, right? This first month of November, the direct motion of Mars. The month of December, what it feels to go backwards. And then we're going to wait months before we get back into a Mars-Leo situation. And by that time, Mars may not be so rogue, right? Because there might be other planets flying around and aspecting it and all that other stuff. But to start off the month, for Mars to be rogue, coming from Cancer, right? Whatever your Mars Cancer story was, which is definitely a calmer Mars for some of us, right? Probably more emotional, I would say, emotionally frustrating, or a lot of us might have been acting upon emotion, right? Some of us might have been moving very aggressively based upon how we're feeling, more than logically acting out upon stuff maybe at times. Like maybe some of you have been connecting with people and that connection has been based more upon our emotions versus like thinking it out logically, right? Sometimes you can like really fall in love and you're just completely in your emotions and your feels and you're not like logically thinking it out as well, right? Because I feel a healthy connection requires a bit of logic and of course emotion and of course tapping into the soul. So Mars in Cancer is a very emotionally driven transit, right? Or placement if you have that in your birth chart. So again, we're seesawing now. We're going to start seesawing with a retrograde and then the forward direct motion, which is really all we've been dealing with now, these forward direct motions. And this is going to be the flavor that Mars is going to be pretty much all up until heading into the spring, mid-spring, heading into the summer, my friends. It's a wild time for Mars to be in Leo and, of course, Cancer. But right now it's rogue. It's going to be rogue. And it's going to go opposite Pluto starting November 20th. So that's really when we get the next massive activation for Mars. And that will be an entirely new dimension of oppositions. And I'm very curious on what that brings to your life. And I'm very curious to see what that's going to bring to my life. Of course, coming off of these other oppositions. So the Mars-Pluto story opposition, I feel is, definitely in the mundane astrology world, there's going to be some epic things go down. And again, not going to speculate here on the channel what I think some of that stuff will be. But again, after coming off of a month of serious Mars-Pluto oppositions with the old world of including Pluto and Capricorn, the old karma, we're now going to be activating some new karma, right? Some new events, some new things that occur that may very well set up a trend of karmas to come in the future, right? So really be mindful of November 20th and all this other stuff when Mars starts going opposite of Pluto. And of course, as Mars retrogrades back towards Cancer, those activations actually, those oppositions to Pluto and Aquarius are going to get stronger as Mars retrogrades. So again, December is going to be another big month because we're going to experience what a Pluto opposition in a brand new zodiac sign looks like while in retrograde motion. So this is really why the Mars retrograde is such a big deal, because even though it's rogue right now, or will be within 24 hours for a good majority of November, once November 20th comes, all bets are off. We're back into Pluto opposition territory in Aquarius, and we are in retrograde territory that is setting up a massive winter into spring cycle. And yeah, my friends, I'm not sure if there's anything else I want to say except for we always must be on watch for Mars, especially when Mars is in a fire sign. I definitely expect for there to be a loud event, probably Monday going into Tuesday. Of course, election day is here, so there could be something very, very loud involving something going on between maybe Trump or Kamala, whatever, just something going on in politics. Even though every day there seems to be like a massive bombshell or someone says something but again, when Mars enters a sign for the first time, even when it entered Cancer, loud events occur, right? Sometimes violent events unfold. Like I never discount violence on the world stage for a fresh ingress. In our own lives, we have to track, right? But it's going to be interesting to see how this brand new transit begins. It really is going to be interesting. So please let me know if you come back to this video, throughout the week. Let me know how you feel about Mars and Leo. Let me know anything you would like to share. And yeah, I hope I spoke enough on this today, my friends, because every week thus coming up, I want to, of course, analyze a little bit more deeply all the other transits we talked about in my prior video from last week, the November forecast. And yeah, my friends, every month is going to have more and more strong astrology to cover. And we are only just in the beginning of a new future with Pluto and Aquarius, the outer planet changes, and all of the shifts that are going on, for all of us. So, yeah, my friends, that's all I have for you today. I hope you're well. And yeah, I'll see you next Sunday.